Hey out there. Hey, this is June 7th, 2014, and I'm in Northern California. And this morning I wanted to talk about a few things like I usually do. And one of them is self-mutilation. And whether we're talking about literal self-mutilation, like people that have this tendency to want to cut their wrists or attempt suicide, or any other number of less lethal means of self-destruction, or whether we're talking about a metaphorical desire for just plain old sabotaging our happiness. Um, and traditional psychology, traditional methods of counseling somebody on a one-on-one individual basis is to examine what's going on in their lives and get into the personal aspects of what they may be doing right, what they may be doing wrong, and trying to correct them with medication or therapy. And I want to propose a whole nother idea out there, and that is that really the issues are more external than we're being taught or told. And some of this is advertent, intentional, and some of it is inadvertent. And it creates a confused, nebulous situation of muddy water. And I would like to kind of try to clear that water for people out there and help them to understand, get to the root of what really might be bugging them and what's causing them to find alternative means for gratifying that rebellious nature, that human nature that we all have. And I propose that people really say, well, what things in my life do I have control of, and what things do I not have control of? And I propose that it's the things that we don't have control of that are really bugging us. And that the way to be free from those things, because depending on how you define freedom personally, will depend on what criteria needs to be met in order for you to be free. And fundamentally, the most paramount cause, external cause for misery and suffering out there, and our tendency to engage in some kind of metaphorical wrist slashing, if you will, some metaphorical mutilation, is money. This is the root cause of all the misery, all the suffering. It goes right back to what Jesus taught. He did not teach, for example, that money is the root of some of the evil. Jesus taught that money is indeed the root of all the evil, bar none. No suffering excluded, because evil is the root cause of suffering. And if money is the root of all evil, then we understand that in order for us to get to the bottom of things, we need to go essentially for a metaphorical jugular vein. And that jugular vein is our currency. It's the money printing presses. And if we don't get to the bottom of this thing, none of us will ever attain true happiness, because none of us will ever indeed be free. Free from the money masters that have dominated us from birth. What I'm talking about is the need for a level playing field from birth, with nobody having an inherent advantage or disadvantage over others. And many of us have been so brainwashed, indoctrinated, inculcated into believing that, well, somehow it's okay that people have inherited wealth, and the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and this class of individuals out there, that somehow it's okay. And we condone it, whether it's just in our minds because of the way we've been taught, whether we've even thought about it, determines how we perceive whether or not this is okay to inherit this vast wealth. And personally, I don't think it's okay at all. There's a multitude of ways that humanity could be free, that all the captives under this monetary-based reality that's been imposed on us, that our society is infused with this kind of thinking that money is the answer for everything, just like King Solomon said, is wrong. For one thing, we could cap wealth. I mean, I'm not a communist, I'm not a socialist, but I say I'm actually a capitalist. I'm a free market supply and demand capitalist guy, because I understand that if we really had that system, it would gradually set the captives free through prosperity, a slow rising tide of prosperity across the board. But if we capped wealth at, say, I don't know, how much do you need? Ask yourself, how much do you think is reasonable that you have or your children have? $100 million maybe. But if you did that, you would see that there'd be so much abundance out there in the treasuries that every nation on earth would be unspeakably wealthy. And if the nations of the earth, that the governments of the earth that hold the monies for the people, these treasuries that are supposed to be servants for you and I, and these politicians that work with the money printers and the treasury, the Federal Reserve Bank here in America, then there'd be so much abundance that you couldn't help but be set free. And if humanity was set free, suddenly you'd see all the problems that have plagued humanity through the ages would dissipate. They would slowly, gradually disappear. All the problems. I mean, you could basically name any problem out there and it would go into decline if we had sound currency with checks and balances. And that's all I'm talking about. I'm talking about rules. People instinctively want rules. We want to know where we stand. If this is a game, then we want to know what the rules of the game are. And we want to play it. We don't want to cheat, but we want to succeed. We want to be able to get ahead. Okay, we want our ship to rise too. We want to prosper so that we can have a sense of security. So we don't have to worry about, first and foremost, basic human needs. Things like food, clean water, and shelter. We don't want to have to worry about those things because we have very few needs, but we don't want to be thrown into a sense of insecurity of having those needs in perpetuity for no good reason. But essentially, that's what's happened here, is that we've got a rigged game. And many people out there are saying to themselves, you know what, I don't want to play, okay? Maybe I know that I could succeed because I too could act corruptly and not care about others and act like I don't have a conscience and go out there and succeed at this game because I know I'm smart and I know I'm perhaps smarter than that guy that's successful, that's made a lot of money and that his ship has risen well in this money-based paradigm that we've been, thrust into. But you know what? I'm kind of like that. And I imagine a lot of other people are like that too. And it's a natural instinct. It's a good instinct. You should not want to play this game. And Jesus went so far as to say that you must hate your life in this world in order to have everlasting life. Or at least everlasting life that counts, because it's never written that the wicked actually perish in the sense that they don't exist anymore. They're destroyed and they perish for lack of understanding, and they end up going to this hell, a more painful place where they can decide to be a decent, upright human being with a conscience of their own accord, their own free choice. It's all about choosing to be a righteous person and not a wicked person. And so you can understand how vastly different our reality would be if everybody on earth was playing a game that wasn't rigged, that was fair from birth. That if indeed a force for good was at the very top of the pyramid rather than a force for evil like it is right now. And that day is coming. And everybody should take great heart and be encouraged in knowing that that day is coming. It's called the turn of the age, the end of one age and the beginning of a new age. And I really firmly believe, as do many other people out there, that we are entering that period of time. So things are going to change dramatically and profoundly. And this is going to be a very beautiful thing for the meek, for the righteous, for the decent and upright people out there that hunger and thirst for righteousness to be done on earth, to have a just civilization. Not for some, but for everybody. But for others, this is a time of loathing and misery and great tumult. They are going to be traumatized by events that are going to take place on this earth in a very short period of time, I believe. And, short is a relevant term. I mean, Jesus said, the end of the age is near, and that was, as we know, some 2,000 years ago. But he also gave the signs for the end of the age. Not just one sign, signs plural, many different signs to be looking for, to be ready. Because again, God does not want us caught with our pants down, our metaphorical pants, which means to have the wrong beliefs about things, the wrong perception, the wrong values. He wants our values to be in line with his, to be on the same page. He wants us to understand that so often in this current world system that tells us that the things that are logical and practical and, that are of common sense are the monetary things, the material things. But so often those things are actually enmity to God. And it's written that the things highly valued among men are detestable in the sight of God. That, woe to the man that is rich toward the world in this world system and is poor toward God. And those loftier, more spiritual things that really matter to God, like just being a friend to good, to deciding that, it doesn't matter if I lose my physical life or not. At least I want to keep my conscience. I want to keep true to my heart and soul, my spirit, my mind. I want to be true to myself. And I want to attain a sense of true happiness. And I want to understand things the way that this force for good, God Almighty, wants me to understand it. He wants me to understand that He's my friend and that His yoke is easy, His load is light. And like Jesus said, He said you could almost forget the Ten Commandments, the original Ten Commandments that Moses gave us, although these were good and prudent in their time. But He said that there are two commandments, I give you new commandments that supersede them all, that if you follow these two commandments, that you will embody all the other commandments, will all fall into place of their own accord. And these two commandments are as follows. The one is to love God above all else, because God is the rightful source of all that is truly good. Every single good quality, characteristic, and attribute comes from above. It's a gift. And it's a gift that, logically speaking, reasonably speaking, our parents want us to receive so that we can be like them and find true happiness, to be empowered, and to be the people, be who we really want to be, not who we superficially want to be, egoistically who we want to be, who we think we are by the possessions we have, by the things we've done, by our educational level, or whatever those other facets of our ego-based reality are, like conceit and vanity, our body consciousness, how we look. I mean, the body is just it's a vehicle. It's like a shroud that embodies our true essence. Our true substance is invisible. It's miraculous. It's the heart, the soul, the spirit, the mind. The body, and we have senses that the body encapsulates those senses for us, and we're able to use the sense of smell and taste and touch and sight and hearing. All these wonderful gifts from above. They're miraculous. It's a mystery. I mean, science, they talk about this idea that everything came about through natural selection. Well, I say, wait a minute, how can that be when every stitch of human technology, from a hammer and a nail to toys roving around on Mars taking pictures, came about because we